Hello everyone, today we're going to build out our login and logout logic using the Netlify identity service, and I built a small demo to show you what we're going to be doing. So if I click on login, because I don't currently have any kind of user, I'm going to have to sign up first. So I'm going to sign up with my email. The email should be here actually. This should be my name. And when I sign up, then look at this. Now we have this text that's saying this will only show if you're logged in, and then it has some text at the top that says welcome back, and then whatever name that you're going to sign up with. And then when I click on logout, then it logs me out, of course. Now when I click on login again, because I already have an account with them, so I'm going to just place in my email, and then now I can log in because I already have an account. Now if I go into my, let me log out. If I go into my Netlify identity service, then look at this. I'm just going to reload this, and it should see that I've created a new instance of myself logging in, created that a few seconds ago, which is actually correct. So we're going to do the very same thing in Trigr. So on our website, we're going to build out our authentication service, and I've just remembered that we created our login form, but we're not really going to use this one because we're going to use the model that pops up, that you've just noticed. It pops up from Netlify right here. Okay, so I can close this. And then one thing that I should mention is that you should go ahead and deploy your website. So if you have not done so, you should go ahead and deploy your website to Netlify, okay, because we're using the Netlify identity service. And what you can do is you can go into netlify.com, you can log in or sign up, and then you can just say new site from Git, and then choose your Git provider that you're hosting your source code on. Mine is GitHub, so I can just select GitHub. And then once it logs in like so, then I can select my repository which I want to deploy, which will build out the website for me. And then once you do that, then you can go ahead. So mine is called a Trigr, that's what I have. So trigr.netlify.app, and I'm going to go ahead into identity right here, and then I'm going to say enable identity. Okay, and just like that, we have our identity service enabled on Netlify. Now we're going to have to do a bit of setup in our local host before we can deploy it, before we can actually test all of this out. So I'm going to open up VS Code. I already have my dev server running on localhost 3000. Okay, so in VS Code, I'm just going to say open up my terminal using Control and J, and then I'm going to say npm install netlify identity widget, like so. So we need this service to integrate with Netlify. And I forgot to mention that we are going to use the context API for this, just because it becomes easier to share data across all the components. So as this installs, I'm just going to close this, and then I'm going to go into my source folder and create a new folder called context. And then inside here, I'm going to create a new file called auth.js, like so. Okay, now we're going to start building out our context. So I'm going to say import create context, and use state, and use effect. Okay, this is all coming from React, of course. Fantastic. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say actually we need the Netlify identity service. So I'm going to say import Netlify identity from Netlify identity widget, which has just finished installing. Okay, and then below this, I'm going to say const auth context equals to create context, like so. Just going to initialize it like that for now. And then below this, I'm going to say export const auth context provider. Okay, this is going to be equal to this, an arrow function. And then inside here, I'm just going to say const user and set user. This is going to be use state, and by default it's going to be null because there's not going to be a user logged in, right? Now come on, don't do that. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so once we do this, then I'm going to go below this, and I'm going to say return auth context dot provider, like so. Close it out, and then inside here we're going to render out children. Okay, and I'm going to explain where this is coming from in a moment. So we need to access this inside here as a prop. So we're going to destructure children, right? Now, once we do this, when we return the auth context provider, we need to return it with some kind of value. and as is the custom of our people, we're just going to say hello world, okay, for now. So I'm going to save this, okay, and then I'm going to go inside my index.js right inside here, and then I'm going to say above the app, right above my app component, I'm going to say auth context provider, which is going to auto import that for me. And then of course remember to close it out, so auth context provider. So we import auth context provider from context auth, which is just basically what we have above this, okay. And then just to test it out, okay, so I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to go inside my components, and then I'm going to go, let's just go inside the header, and then inside header I'm going to say, actually about this I'm just going to say import auth context from / should be context / auth, like so. So now we are importing where is it, we are importing this, okay. And actually because we're importing it, then I should probably export it right here, so export default auth context, don't forget that. Okay, so once we finish importing it, then I just want to show you how we can access this value that we have here, which is the prop for the auth context provider, right? So I'm going to go inside below this, and I'm going to say const value equals to use context, which is a hook from React, which we need to import, and then this is going to be equal to auth context. So let's import that hook. So I'm going to say import use context from React, okay. And then let me say right inside here, okay, inside my logo, then I just want to access the value. So I'm going to save this, and then let's see what we have on the screen right here. Let's reload this, and it says hello world, right, which is basically what we have inside our value inside here, right? So that means that we are able to access this prop inside the other components, so we have set it up correctly. So I'm going to change this back to Trigr, like so, because that's our logo. And then I'm going to go back inside my auth.js, and then we're going to begin a bit more of setup. Now let me explain this, children, right? So inside index.js, notice how we wrap the auth context provider. We wrap the app component inside the auth context provider. So the app component becomes the child of all of this. Remember that the app component is kind of our parent component for all other components, right? We are rendering all other components inside our app component. So that means by wrapping the app inside the auth context provider, then we can access all the data in our context API inside all other components in our application, and that is very, very necessary. Okay, so let's go below this, and then let's set up our use effect, right? And then let's set up an empty dependency to close it out. So we are going to begin using our netlify identity service. So I'm going to say netlify identity dot init, which is going to initialize netlify identity. And then I'm going to say once again netlify, actually, you know what, we're going to do this a lot, so let me just copy this. So I'm going to say netlify identity dot on, right? And we're listening for a login event, like so, where we want to access the user, okay? And then we just want to say set user into the user, okay? Don't do that. Set user into the user, which just basically logs them in. And then below this, once again, we're just going to see netlify identity dot on, and then we're listening for a logout event, okay? And then we want to say set user back to null, which will log them out. And actually, by the way, after doing this, we probably want to close the model. So I'm going to say netlify identity dot close, which will just close the model that is going to pop up. And then below this, once we log out, then I just want to say netlify identity dot on, and we're listening for the init event, like so, and we want to access the user, and then we just want to say set user into the user, like so. So we are listening for the initialize event to initialize netlify identity, and if the user exists, then we just want to say set user into the user that exists, okay? And then we are going to need to clean up our use effect so that these don't run in the background. So I'm going to say return, like so, and we're going to say netlify identity dot off, and we just want to turn off the login event, and then just copy this down, change this to logout, just to clean up our use effect so that all of these don't run in the background. Okay, so once we have this, then I'm going to go outside of this use effect. So outside of the use effect, which ends right here, then I'm going to create my login and logout functions. So I'm going to say const login. This is going to be an arrow function, and I'm just going to say netlify identity dot open, which will open the model, right, for the login model. And then actually, you know what, I can just copy this because it's almost something similar. Copy it. This is going to say log out, and this is just going to say dot close. Okay, so once we have this, then we're going to have to pass in this logout and the login and the user into our context right here. So I'm going to add my curly brackets, and then I'm going to say user is going to be null by default, and then login is going to be a function like so, and then logout is also a function which we have just created like so. So I can save this, and now we need a way to pass in all of this inside the value, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to destructure the login, the logout, and the user, and then pass them in inside a variable that I'm going to create, and then we're going to pass them in inside the value here. So I'm going to say const, let's just call this context, and this is going to be equal to the user, the login, and the logout, like so. So the user state value, the login function, and the logout function. And then instead of passing hello world inside here, then I can now pass in context, right? Which means it's just going to populate the value with all of this. So that's looking fantastic. So I'm going to save this, and then in header.js, okay? So in header.js, now instead of just getting the value here, right? Instead of just getting the value, now I'm going to get the user, the login, and the logout, which is basically the same thing that we have done inside here, the user, the login, and the logout, right? This is of course use context, and it's coming from auth context, which is what we have here. Okay, fantastic. Now once we do this, then what I can do is inside the you know what, probably I need this button. I need the login and logout function inside the button component. So I'm going to import use state. I'm going to import use context. If I can just type it without clicking other buttons. This is from React, and then we also need to import auth context from /context /auth, like so. And then we're going to say right here, we're going to say const login and logout. This is going to be equal to use context and passing our auth context. Fantastic. Now once we do this, then I want that when we click on this button right here, which we're going to change by the way to say login, so log in, and this is no longer going to be a link, so I'm going to remove all of this. I'm going to remove this. Probably these class names I should copy them, so just copy this, and then this is going to be our button, right? Now inside our button, let me paste in these class names, so class names like so that the button retains the class names. Now inside this button, when I click on this, then I want to trigger the login event, right? So I'm going to go after this, and I'm going to say on click, I'm just going to call the login event, right, which will prompt me to log in. So I'm going to save this, and let's see what we can do. Probably I think that should be okay for now. So let me save this header and let's test it out, right? So just reload this so that this changes as well. So it's going to say login. So when I log in, and remember that I already have an instance of identity running from the demo that I showed you. So you might get a bit of a different screen than mine. So I'm going to say login, and I'm just going to say clear localhost URL to be safe, right? And then I'm going to enter in my URL for Trigr. So I'm going to say https. It's called trigger.netlify.app. And then I'm going to say set sites URL. So that's why you need to deploy it, okay? That's why you really need to deploy your website. So for the login, because I don't have any instance, so I'm going to say sign up first. Okay, so once I fill in the details, then I'm just going to say sign up. And it says a confirmation message has been sent to your email. Now, for the purposes of testing, I don't want to do this, right? So I'm going to go into Netlify, and then I'm just going to say settings and usage inside my identity. So settings and usage. And then I'm going to say should be right here, confirmation template. So I'm going to say edit settings, and I'm going to say allow users to sign up without verifying their email address, just because I don't want to jump into my email right now to kind of show you, right? Okay, so I'm just going to reload this. Let's say login again. I hope this will work. email not confirmed. So let me just do that quickly. Okay, so I've confirmed my email, but I'm still getting a small error here where it says email not confirmed, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to deploy this so that it reflects the changes in my website, because currently this is what, where is it? Because currently this is what I have, which we have just changed, right? So let me deploy this to Netlify so that it reflects the changes as well. Okay, so once this pushes to GitHub, then it's going to trigger a redeploy on Netlify, which should then have the latest changes on our website. So let me just monitor how that is going. Let's go into Netlify. Let's go back to the top right here, and it should say building. And you know what? We're going to get an error because these are assigned a value but never used. So let's fix that. Let's just comment this out. Let's comment this out and comment this out. Okay, so in button.js, navlink is used, so we have to remove this and comment this out. And we should have this. Okay, fantastic. So you just say git add all and git commit, let's say remove unused variables. Let's say git push, and it's going to trigger another redeploy because this one should have failed, but it hasn't failed. That's amazing. Usually it has failed, but it usually fails by now. So let's see if it has started. Okay, there we go. So it has failed. So let's go to deploy details. Okay, there we go. So we can preview this, and we should have this on the screen, right? So we have our website, we have this, and we can test this out. So we can say login, right? Okay, so I'm going to click on login, and I'm going to click on sign up now to create a new user. And then once I create this new user, then I'm just going to click on sign up. Okay, there you go. Which means if I click on login, then I should see logout instead of login, right? And there we go. So that means that this is working correctly. So logged in as me, and there we go. So we can log out once again, and then it brings us this model. So let's continue building this out in localhost, and this should now work correctly. And actually what I can show you is that if you go into your Netlify identity and then you just kind of reload this, then you should see the users who are logged in currently, which is me, right? So I'm going to go back into our development, and I'm going to place this to the side now, probably because it's going to be easier, and then place this to the side. Okay, and then now that this is logged in, right, now we need that when this is login, then we need to show our logout button, right? So I'm just going to add another button here. And actually, you know what, I think we can do a conditional. So let me get the user here, right? And then I'm just going to remove this, and I'm going to place my curly brackets to test for a condition. So I'm going to say if the user exists, right? If the user is true, then I want the button to say log out. And if the user doesn't exist, so we just say login. So let's save this and let's see. Okay, so it says login. If I log in, let's log in. And after logging in, it should say log out. There we go. That's looking fantastic. So that's a very nice way to do a conditional. So what this user means, actually, if you don't understand where this is coming from, is that we are checking for whether the user is null or not. And by default, the user is null because we have set the state value to null right inside here. But once we log in, right, once we log in here, then we set the user into the user who has just logged in. Okay, and the netlify.close is what logs out a user by default. Now let's add the logout component. Okay, let's add a logout button. And actually, you know what, I've just realized something, that we have logout here and we have logout here. Okay, so this is not something that I wanted, and it's actually something that I've just noticed. So this would mean that we have to go into our hero.js, and we are going to have to change this component into a button. Okay, we're going to change this into a button and remove this at the top. And this button is basically going to say the same thing as the class names inside here. So we just copy this and paste them inside here, and this button is just going to say get started. Okay, and then when we click on this button on click, we want this button to trigger the login event, which we need to get from the context, right? So once again, we were just going to say import use context from React. Okay, and then below this, we're just going to say we want to get the login function, and this is coming not from really, but this is equal to use context, and then we want to pass in auth context, which we also need to import right there. Okay, fantastic. So it would say what did it say? Did it get started? Okay, get started login. Okay, fantastic. That's looking amazing. So for the once we do this, then we want to also make a logout button, and I've just realized that probably this was not the best idea. Okay, because this button only handles the login, and we have placed a condition to check for the login or logout. So I'm going to remove this actually because it's not going to help us. So I'm going to say this should say login because it triggers the login event, and then I'm just going to copy this. So copy this down, okay, and remove this. Don't place a /, and this is going to say log out, and then it's going to trigger the logout function, which we'll need to get from here. So log out, like so. Fantastic. And the logout function, we also created it right here. Okay, so let's save this and then let's test it out. Now notice how we have two buttons here. We're going to fix that in a moment. So if we say login, I'm already logged in, so I'm going to try and log out. Okay, so log out, nothing is happening. Let's see what we have in the console. Let's go into auth.js and then let's just say console log logout event. Let's see that. Okay, so this, oh, you know what, it's because this is not close, this is logout, not close. Okay, so when you log in, we open the model, and when you log out, we trigger the logout function to log us out. Okay, so sorry for that. So now when we say logout, come on, seriously, are you serious? Let's see, login, logged in. Okay, so logout. Really? Am I calling this function wrongly? On click logout, on click logout, log out. What is happening? Oh, so it logged us out. Okay, it logged us out correctly. It just took a while, and it didn't trigger the logout console log as I had hoped it would. So let's just remove this. Oh, we already removed it. Okay, fine. Oh, I removed it. That's why it didn't trigger, you know. Okay, that's fine. So it logged us out because now when I click on login, then it gives me the model, right? Now this would mean that we want to check that if the user is logged in, then we only render the logout button, and if the user is logged out, then we only render the login button. So that's very easy to do. We can just go inside this button. We're just going to cut out this button, and then we're going to place a condition of, we are going to say if the user exists, and only when the user exists. So we do a double ampersand, which is a truthy and, which means it will only execute the expression on the right if the left is also true. So I'm going to paste this in. So if the user exists, that's when we want to render our logout button, and if the user doesn't exist, then it's going to render this one. So let's save this and let's see. So there we go. So no user exists, so I'm going to click on login, and then once I log in, then it should say logout. There we go. So it says logout, and we still need to fix this. So I'm just going to grab this, and I'm going to say place my other conditional, and I'm going to say when the user doesn't exist, and do the same thing. So here is not user and here is user. Okay, so if the user doesn't exist, this one renders, and if the user exists, this one renders. So save this, and there you go. So when we click on logout, then we should see login, and when we click on login, we should see logout. So let me just place a comment here, and I'm going to say render this button if the user is logged in, and I'm going to copy this and paste this above here, and this is going to say logged out. So save this, and there we go. Change this to capital R because it's bothering me. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so we are progressing very nicely. Okay, and when we click on the get started button, remember we also trigger the login event. So we need some kind of content, and by the way, I've just remembered that we disabled, because we're no longer going into the get started page, then we need to go into app.js, and we just need to disable this for now because we're not really using this path anymore. Okay, so disable this. Okay, fantastic. Now what we need to do is we need to work on our internal page, which we are only going to display if the user is logged in, right? Now for that, if you go into the index.js, you'll find that I have numbers API right inside here. Okay, so this is an API that just shows random facts about numbers because I looked for a trigonometry API, but I didn't get any. Okay, so we're just going to use this one for now, and I'm just going to copy this link, and I actually already have it, and I'm going to go inside the pages, and I'm going to create a new file called numbers.js, or rather I can call it number facts, but this is still okay. And I'm going to say underscore RFC, and then at the top I'm going to import use state and use effect. Okay, this is coming from React. And then I'm going to set up my state values, so I'm going to say const details and set details, which is basically the details for the number. This is going to be use state, and by default I think it's going to be an empty string. I think so actually. And then let's just set up our use effect. So use effect, and we want to fetch data from that API. So I'm going to say const fetch number data. This is going to be an asynchronous function, and we're going to say const res equals to await fetch, and we're going to pass in the URL that we have inside here, inside backticks, because we're going to change this dynamically. And then we're going to say const data equals to await res.json, and then we want to set the details into the data that we get back. Okay, and then let's just call this function so fetch number data like so, and then add in our empty dependency array so that this only runs on the initial render. And then inside here, let's return a section, and inside this section, come on, and then inside this section, let's just have an h2 that says details. I actually don't know what we get back from this, but actually no, let's just console log here. Let's console log the data, and then let's just disable this for now. And then we need to create the page that is going to render this. So I'm going to go into app.js, and then I'm going to render a route inside here. The path for this is going to be dashboard, you know, just because it sounds cool, and it's going to be rendering our what we call our number component. Okay, so number, and then close out the route. Okay, just check that this is imported. Let's import number. So import number from /pages/number. Okay, so let's save this, and then let's see what we have. Now number is a protected route. Okay, so it's not accessible to people who are not logged in. Okay, so I want to do something different for this number component. Okay, and if you see the section where we are coding up the use effect call and everything, that it made it into the video, but we're not going to do that anymore because of some issues with the API. So what I'm going to do is right inside here, I just want to return a fragment. Okay, and then we're going to return a section, and then we're just going to return an h that says number component, and then at the top I'm going to import use state from React. And actually, you know what, I think, yeah, okay, this is correct actually. And then what I'm going to do is we're just going to create some simple things. So I'm just going to say simple but interesting. So I'm going to say const number and set number. This is equal to use state, and then by default it's 0. Okay, so we're going to have this, and then I'm going to display, I'm going to get I'm going to create a component called alert.js, and then inside I'm going to say underscore RFC, and then I'm going to return a paragraph that says number is negative like so, and then give this a class name of class name of text red dash 500. Okay, and then back in number, inside here we're going to have, let me save this, let's see what we have on the screen. Okay, so we have number component on the screen. Let me just place this to the side. Okay, and close this. So below this, I'm going to create a button, and actually not, instead of a button, let's create a div first, and then the button, this is going to say +1. Okay, and then just do the same about 5 more times. So +2, +3, +4, +5, and then all of these buttons are going to have an on click event. Okay, so on click, we're going to say passing our inline function like so, and I'm just going to say set number into number +1. Of course, this is going to be +2, this is +3, +4, and +5. Okay, now this is a bit overkill, but you know, it's interesting to do. And then we're going to do almost the same thing, but now in the negative. So we're going to just grab all of this, and we're going to make this minus, like so. So this one as well as this one right here, so -1, -2, and so on and so forth. And then in the middle here, we're going to have a paragraph that says, what is it? Our state value is called number, like so. Now, when we go into the negative, then we want our alert component to display. And then when we go into the positive, then we don't want our alert component to display. So that's what we're going to do. Now, once again, we are doing this because we had trouble with the API, and I don't really want to deal with that right now. So let's just save this for now, and we should see this on the screen. Now, for all these buttons, let me just give all these buttons a class name, because we're going to style all of them the same. And actually, you know what, let me just place this full screen because it's easier. And then I'm going to click on this one, and then hold down my Alt key, and then click on this one, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And all of these are going to have the same class names. So class name of, let's say, BG, what should we say? BG green. You know, let me see how indigo looks. So BG indigo dash 300 PY2 PY PX4, and then rounded, and then text white, and then what else? We can have border and border dash indigo dash 300, and then we say for the hover state, then we want the BG transparent. Okay, and then we want the transition dash all and duration dash 300 for all the buttons. Okay, and probably you can have all of this inside one class name so that you don't have to keep on rewriting it. So that we're going to have this. So that's looking nice. So when you click on 1, it goes up +1, +2, and by 2 goes up by 2, and so on and so forth. Now, when we go into the negative, then we want to display our alert component. So let's go right inside where we have our number, our paragraph rather, and we're going to say we're going to remove this. We're going to place a condition instead, and we're going to say if number is less than 0, if this is true, then we want to render our alert component. Okay, and if it is not true, then we just want to render the number. Okay, so let's save this. Look at this. So number is negative, and we have to go up by at least a few before we can go back into positive. Okay, looking fantastic, and so on and so forth. So let's move this to the center. Let's grab this section, and I'm going to say class name of let's say flex and items. Oh no, let's say flex and justify center. So move it to the center. There we go. And then of course flex column to align them in column form. Flex column. Really? Okay, then that means we need to say item center as well. Okay, let's say margin top. Let's say margin top of 20. Push it downwards. Fantastic. Actually, no, let's say margin top of 10, and then for large screens, then margin top of 20. So that we're going to have this, and then number component. Let's give this class name. Let's say margin bottom 5. Let's say font bold. Let's say text 4XL. Make it just a bit bigger. So number component, and then let's deal with this our buttons. So I'm going to go inside this div, give this a class name of flex, and actually no, not really flex, but grid, and the grid columns. Let's say grid columns 4 and a gap of 3. so that we're going to have this. Okay, that's for small screens. Let me see how this looks. So for small screens, let's have 1, 2, 3. And not I've just realized that we can probably push this downwards till here so that we can have all of these as positive numbers. Should I do that, or should I just have 1, 2, 3? Let's have a grid columns of 3. Let's have this as 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then this. Let's move our paragraph down. Cut it out. Just move it after this, and then let's say your number is. Okay, I think this is much better. It kind of looks like a calculator, right? So these are negative, -1, -2, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's looking fantastic. Let's add a space here. Okay, so once we have this, then let's just make sure that this is a protected route, right? So when we go back to the home page and so on and so forth, then we can navigate, right? And then when you click on login, only when we are logged in should we be able to see our dashboard, right? So let's add a link here called dashboard. So let's just go inside header.js. Okay, let's add a third link. Let's copy this down here. Let's call this dashboard. Okay, now for dashboard, we want dashboard only to be visible if we are logged in. Okay, that would mean that we need to get the user from here. So let's enable this once again. Let's enable this and this. We're not using the login and logout function, so we can remove them. And then we're going to say, we're going to grab this list item, and we're going to say that only when user is true should this render, right? So we're going to save this, and nothing is going to happen because we're not yet logged in. But once we log in, okay, then we should see dashboard, right? So we can go into our dashboard now, and dashboard should go into /dashboard, but it goes into contact us because we didn't change this link. So sorry for that. So dashboard, like so. And we should see dashboard. So we have this for our dashboard. Now we need to make sure that you can't as well, because if I log out, okay, if I log out and I go into /dashboard, then I'm going to see this, which I don't want, right? So I'm going to go into app.js, and we're going to do the same thing where we're going to import our context. So we're going to get the user. This is coming from use context. Okay, so let's just make sure that it imports it. And then we also want auth context as well. So it imports this. Let's move it to the top because it's a high level import. So we have this const user, and then we want to make sure that only when user is true should this path render. So I'm not sure if this would work. Okay, I'm not sure whether this would work, but let's just say let's grab this, let's grab the entire route, and then say only when user is true, that's when this route should render. So let's see, and there we go. So we have when we are not logged in, right? When we're not logged in, then we have an error page, and I've just realized that we didn't style our error page, but we're going to deal with that in a moment. Now when we log in, so let's just log in once again. So when we log in, I want to display a welcome back message on the top, right? Probably even in the place of this, we can do that. So let's go inside our number.js, and right at the top, we're going to say inside here, okay, we want to access the user actually from our use context. So below this, let's just say const, let's say, what is it, destructure the user. Where do I keep writing from? So this is use context, like so. And we want our auth context. Okay, now what we can do here is we can say user dot what's it called, and actually I've forgotten, sorry for that. So let's just console log the user so that we can see what we have. Console log the user, let's do F12 to see what we have. We have an event, okay, and we have user metadata right here where we can access the full name. So you want to say inside our h2, we want to say user.user underscore meta, is it metadata in one word? Okay, metadata dot full underscore name, which will get the name that you log in with right here. Okay, so we can save this, and we should see welcome back, or rather, you know, my name. So let's just say welcome back. Let's say welcome back, and we can probably make this 3XL so that it's not so huge. So welcome back, there we go, and we have that looking amazing. So we can remove this console log, and I think this is going to wrap up the Trigr landing page. Actually, you know what, the error page, we have the error page to style. So let's go into error page. Let's go, where are you? Here. And for the error page, let's just, actually, you know what, let's return a section. Then let's grab this and move it upwards. Let's give this a class name of flex and item center and flex call and justify center and h screen, which will make it take 100 viewport heights. Okay, let's just go into error page. So right here, let's grab this h1, give this a class name of text dash 4xl, margin bottom of 5, and then let's go inside here, give this a class name of padding on the y of 2, padding on the x of 4, rounded, and bg green dash 500. That is what we are using, right? I hope so. And then we have a border and border dash green dash 500. Okay, and then we should have a hover state where we change the border to transparent, the background solid transparent, and then transition, and then a duration of 300 just so it's smooth. There we go. So we have this. So error page. So let's just change this to say, sorry, this page does not exist. There we go. Fantastic. So this is our error page. Go back to home page, and then let's log in once again. So we are logged in, and once we are logged in, why isn't the dashboard showing? Why isn't the dashboard showing? I think that's a bug. Okay, so fantastic. Now I wanted to do something interesting here where we could fetch data from an API, from a mathematics API preferably, so that it just rhymes with our Trigr landing page. But I've tried to research and I've not really got one, and the one that I wanted to use backfired on me, so that's why we have not really used it. But I think this is it's a minimal project. It's kind of almost useless, but I think it's very nice, right? Where we have your number is negative and so on and so forth. So kind of like a kind of error state. Okay, so yeah, I think that is going to be it. We added netlify identity and the context API in this section, in this video actually, and this video is probably going to be longer than the rest, but that's understandable. And what I plan to do is at the end of this all, then I want to splice all the videos together into one giant video, probably around, it's going to be around probably an hour and a half or 2 hours long. But I think in case there are some who want to watch that, then they can watch it and build without all the cuts, you know. Yeah, so I think that is going to be it. That is going to be it. So let me just commit this to GitHub, and then yeah, everything is going to be okay. So thank you guys for watching, and if you have reached this far, then please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Hello everyone. So I've just remembered that if you want to give people the option to log in with other services such as Google, then you can go into your identity tab of your website, then you can say settings and usage, and then you can scroll down to external providers here, and you can choose any of this. This is the current one. These are the current ones that Netlify supports, and if you add this, then it's going to reflect immediately into your website.